Our first member of this panel is Trevor Brasher from Marriott. If you want to make your way up. We have the inimitable Senator Donovan Dela Cruz from the Hawaiʻi State Senate. Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means and one of the fiercest advocates for making Hawaiʻi a great place for our families.
All the way to the end, or wherever you like.
Come on up, take your seat. Mahalo for joining us. From the Department of Education, making sure that all of these efforts align with where our students are. How do we meet our students where they're at to get them the education they need, get them on the path to a bright future career? From the Department of Education, State of Hawaii, Tammy Oyarumari-chan. Mahalo nui. From Hawaiian Airlines, one of the people who works really hard to make sure that our hometown carrier attracts and retains the best and brightest to give that one-of-a-kind feeling to all of their passengers, JD Nyamono. And to lead us in this conversation, in this panel, President and CEO of the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Authority, and we're so happy to have him as board chair of the Hawaii Tourism Authority, Mufi Hanneman.
Aloha mai kako. Good morning, everyone. Aloha. This is an opportunity for us to hear from an issue that is so important for us, not just in tourism, but throughout the state of Hawaii, in all the jobs that are available for our people to be employed in. I've always said that a leader, a head of an organization, is only as good as the people that he or she surrounds themselves with. And today we have 4 esteemed speakers to share their mana'o, to give us their insights on what we need to do to address this. I feel so strongly about this that I welcome the opportunity that I had on the national level to provide recommendations to the Travel Tourism Advisory Board that Secretary Lasry spoke about. Because I wanted to also not only share what we're doing from Hawaii, but I also wanted to learn what other places are doing so that I could bring that back here and be able to try to implement it with folks that are here today as well as others who are not in this room. Everyone has either been employed in the visitor industry or you have family members that have been employed in the visitor industry. My first job was right outside this convention center. My sister was working for the Waikiki Hotel, and she said, "Do you want to be a lot boy? Do you want to park cars?" I said, "If it's a job, sure." But of course, my extra added incentive was Tahitian Lanai was known for its fabulous banana muffins. And so I was glad to park the cars, especially for all the folks that worked at the Tahitian Lanai. But as I look at the history of my family, all of my siblings, one way or another, were touched or impacted, and they were able to provide a meaningful livelihood for themselves and also to take care of their ohana. The beauty of the hospitality industry is this. Whether you have a lot of education, a lot of formal education, or very little education, but you bring some skill sets to the table, you can have a meaningful career. You can have a meaningful career. And here's the thing. We always talk about the number of jobs that we have out there for our people to enjoy. We always tout the fact that we are the largest provider of those jobs. But what workforce development is all about is to make sure that we are providing the incentives, we are providing opportunities for people, whether they be young, whether they be older, to see a pathway. They see a pathway of growth. They see a pathway of they're able to continue to be able to be that major breadwinner, or if they are in a situation where 2 people are working in the family, or 3 or 4 or 5, that's good. And if they're employed in the hospitality industry, all the better. So today is an opportunity to hear from our esteemed speakers. I'll have some specific questions from them. And then I would like to, if time permitting, also invite those of you in the audience to have it. I feel so strongly about this that at HLTA, we have been championing this for a long time. We have this program called Generational Mentoring, where we brought in students from UH Manoa, BYU Hawaii, and Hawaii Pacific University, and we partner them with our general managers. And the general managers have said to us they gain as much as working with our young people as they did with the young people learning from them. And most importantly, many of those internships, we call generational mentoring, have led to full-time employment. We jumped at the forefront to partner with the Hawaii Tourism Authority with the help and support of Senator Donovan De La Cruz to do the Ho'olina scholarships that provide full 4-year scholarships to public high school students in Hawaii to matriculate at the Schuyler Travel School of Industry and Management at University of Hawaii. HTA this summer with Caroline Anderson leading the way, developed a WorkWise program where we employed high school students during the summer. And therefore, hopefully, that would also lead to some part-time employment through the year. The Culinary Institute of the Pacific now has an opportunity with funding provided by HTA to have chefs, the next generation of rising chefs in Hawaii, to receive their Culinary Institute of America certification right here in Hawaii as opposed to going to the mainland to receive that. So I just cite this as a few examples of the fact that I really believe at the end of the day, I would like to see HTA known not only just for destination marketing, destination stewardship, but that workforce development, that we become a driving force as a collaborator with all of those can help us make it happen. So let's begin to hear from each of our panelists. I've asked each of them to take a few minutes to explain from their vantage point, from their point of view, of how workforce development can be a key to a better future. Let's begin first with Senator Donovan De La Cruz, who at the age of 30 became the youngest chairman of the Honolulu City Council. He's now the chairman of the Senate Ways and Means. And I'm going to say this unequivocally with the help of support like people like Senator Decoy. This is the guy that made it possible for us to go from zero funding for 2 years at the legislature to $63 million. Give him a hand. Senator Donovan De La Cruz. Senator?
Thank you. That was actually, this is the legislature. It was a complete group effort, but I do have to say that as chair of HTA, Chair Hanneman did communicate with the legislature, really expressed the need for long-term funding, and that they do HTA does have a strategic plan which justified the base budget. And so it was his good work and a lot of the work of both the House and the Senate to get to a point where we could agree on that. So kudos to Chair Hanneman and the board. Thank you for inviting me to today. I couldn't agree more that Hawaii's people are our most important asset. And having a strong workforce in the visitor industry is going to define our destination and make us the best in the world. But our visitor industry really does need to reflect what the community looks like. I think too many times we go to a hotel and we see the general managers or top management from another country or from the mainland, and it doesn't necessarily, it gives me some pause, being that that's our #1 industry. We just talked about $60 million in the base budget. It's taxpayer money funding that, and we want to make sure that our local community has access to top management jobs. And so what we have to do to make sure that there's no excuse from hotels and the industry is that we have to make sure we provide the best training so that our students can compete for those jobs and be the best qualified for those jobs. This was mentioned, the Culinary Institute of the Pacific Workforce Development. We had funded $2.5 million in DBED's budget. They actually did a contract, worked with KCC, worked with HTA to get this program going. As was mentioned, this allows us, again, to brand our people, that they're going to have the best training in the world for a culinary experience. The Ho'olina scholarships, we funded that. That was almost $110,000. That's a four-year full scholarship for 4 years for our local high schools to enter into tourism. And with the help of Hilta, the TIM school really was able to get in line and embrace it and work with our public schools so that we could get this program up and running. Quickly, what I want to mention about all of these types of programs, and we just came back from Japan. We met with an economist. I think it was Jacob. Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper, yeah.
Jasper Cole. And he had mentioned two things that I think that we all have to think about. He talked about stifling innovation. And with our education system and our HR system, I think too many times we stifle hope because our student thinks, oh, I gotta get that I gotta get that class and this class, and then I gotta do backflips to get into the next one, and then I gotta do all these other things so that I can stay up at night and then get to the community college and then get to the university. It stifles hope. We have to make sure that this continuum, that the student at the high school can see the end of the road, and that they're focusing really on the job training, the skill sets that they have to learn, learning the soft skills, not maneuvering how they're going to get from one class to the next so that they can actually get the job. So we have to do a much better job at trying to make it easier, and that's what all of these programs try to do. So once you get into some of these programs, one of the things that we try to fund at the next level is the Hele Imua internship program. So we had funded this several years ago. Right now, it's just state and county jobs. We're trying to expand that so that we can also use these monies for industry jobs, where the state would pay for a 20-week internship program, $20 an hour. Especially since we're talking about students who may not have a 4-year degree. So they need either the CTE certificate, the AA, they need work experience, and then that makes them qualified for the job. And then it helps the employer get to learn about that potential employee too. Gives them a leg up. That was Act 248. So that was about $5.1 million, 330 interns. 30 of that went to specifically DOE, which they turned into 90 positions, and then the 4 TIM scholarships that we talked about. So this is where we're hoping that we can get your help. We tried this past year. I think we're going to try again for the expansion of the Hele Imua internship program so that we can include the private sector. And then we want to make sure that we connect internships to post-internship and real employment opportunities. It just can't be an internship and where you're going to make coffee, deliver the paper. We want it to be meaningful so that you can actually get a good job in the industry. And so we need both sides to take it. We need industry to take it seriously if we're going to invest this money in it. There's other things that we should be doing. We've had some conversations about how we can support the TIM school so that it becomes a lot more encompassing. And even to the point where maybe at the community college, we actually develop, similar to CIP and Culinary Institute of the Pacific, we have something within the community college system for travel, hospitality, and destination management, which would allow certifications, AAs, so that, again, we can bring more people familiar with jobs, get the credentials so that they can work in the industry. Once you're at the community college, that allows the DOE a lot more access to these type of programs, especially since we fund dual credit, early college, and the Promise program, so that if you can't afford, the state tries to kick in the rest of the amount that you can't afford. All of these, again, provide opportunities so that students can see the end of the road to a real job, not trying to jump through hoops to just get from one class to the next, having to work a part-time job. That's why the internship is paid, so that they don't have to they can really focus on workforce development skills, internship opportunities, and then get long-term employment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to mention a couple of things that the senator talked about. I think it's imperative for all of us in this room that we try to help the Tim School restore the national and international prestige that it had at one time. Where when I was the director of DBED working for Governor George Ariyoshi back in the day, it was regarded as the leading travel industry management school, not just in Hawaii, but the world. So somehow it's kind of slipped over the years, but I really believe by working as we're doing and developing closer ties and relationships, internships, and these scholarships, we can help them in that regard. The second thing they mentioned, and I'm looking at Member McCulley, who's on our board and leads our efforts in government affairs, that this Hele Imoa program that Senator De La Cruz alluded to was something that we really wanted to see happen, because those internships are for state government jobs primarily. And we want to be able to get the hospitality sector in there so that we can have additional incentives. So it passed one part of the legislative branch last year. We want to renew our efforts to help that so that both branches can pass it out and get it to our governor so we can put it into law. So that is the perspective of Senator De La Cruz. I'd like to now share the mic with Tammy Oyanamari Chun. Tammy is the Deputy Superintendent of Strategy for the DOE. And I got to tell you something, you know, Keith Hayashi is a good friend of mine, but even he gets so busy at times he can't even pick up my phone call. So this is the person that we turn to when Jared has to follow up with something on HTA, or Caroline has to, HLTA, and Caroline has to follow up with something HTA. She holds degrees from Pomona College, from the University of Southern Cal, and also Harvard University, go Crimson. But she not only just brings academic smarts to it, she brings a passion and experience of working in government, in the DOE, to help us collaborate closer with our public school system. So, Tammy?
Thanks so much for having me today, and really excited to see all of you here and talk about what's going on in education and how that connects to the workforce. Superintendent Keith Hayashi, many of you might know from interacting with him personally or seeing him in conferences or on TV, that he's really passionate about workforce and what it does for our young people and our community, and how it can really change a family, options for families, and change a school and change a community. Superintendent's theme is globally competitive, locally committed. We want our graduates to have the options and be able to compete anywhere in the world, but we really want them at home. That's what you're all here talking about today in the workforce discussion. How do we help our graduates to be able to see a future for themselves here seamlessly? Like Senator De La Cruz says, it's not enough to just have opportunities out there, whether they're college or internships or jobs. It's making that connection so that that young people don't have to figure it all out for themselves, because there's so many points at which they will get frustrated or don't know how to proceed in the process. And so the work that we can do together can really help make that more seamless so that young people can both see what the opportunities are and then connect to them. I want to just say a couple of things for the introduction. We're really trying to develop the skills and experiences of our students in school so that they will be able to graduate and support their families, themselves, and their community, and then choose Hawaii to be their home. And so later on, I think I'll have the opportunity to talk about what I think are some of the high impact ways that we can partner together to make that happen. But I wanted to take this opportunity to say why I think it's so imperative that we take action. And it's not just about posting the job and getting people into jobs, right? I think we're all experiencing that. Earlier this year, I was in this room, or one of these rooms, about this size, for the Climb High's Lay conference, our meeting for the high school students, and many of you probably participate in that, in each of the events across the 4 islands. But there was a room, more students than you in this room, and I asked them how many is the students who are interested in, are going to spend a day learning about hospitality, careers, and industry. And I asked them, how many of you consider Hawaii your home? And 90% of the room stood up. And then we went through, how many of you would like to live in Hawaii in your future? And probably 75–80% were standing. How many of you feel confident that you're going to be able to have a job and make Hawaii your home in the future? There were maybe 20% standing. So it was very sobering. I think the point I want to make is these were high school sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and they love Hawaii, but they're not confident that they can make a future here. So what does it take? What does it take from all of us for them to feel like they're going to be able to see a future for themselves where they can have purpose and be able to support themselves in the future? And that takes the work like internships, for example, where they're making connections, seeing themselves in the job, meeting you, making those connections and relationships that show them what it looks like to live and work in Hawaii. So I'll use that as an opening, and happy to talk more about how, later in the panel, about how our schools are organized and what I think are good opportunities to partner.
Thank you. We pass the mic over to Jadine, please. So, just to amplify again what Tammy said about Keith Hayashi and his leadership. I used to represent Council District 8, which was Waipahu Pro City, IAEA, worked very closely with all those schools, and at that time, Keith Hayashi was the principal of Waipahu High School. I believe he may have been the first, or maybe one of the first schools, to offer high school graduates there not only a high school diploma when they graduate, but also an Associate of Arts degree from Leeward Community College. And that's how innovative he was back then. And he's taking the same skill sets and passion and working with Tammy to make sure our Department of Education is working very closely with us. Jadine Yamono is a product of the Tim School and has spent years there at Hawaiian Airlines, especially in the Human Resources Department. And one of the things that we appreciate about her is that she made such a meaningful experience for a high school intern that had the opportunity to intern there. And it was a program that we partnered with Kuhio Lewis and Council of Native Hawaiian Advancement. That young lady came back and said, I want to work for Hawaiian Airlines one day, or I want to work in the airline industry because of that wonderful experience as a high schooler under the supervision of Jadine. So Jadine, please.
Thank you. Thanks all for having me today. I think that's a great example of a lot of red tape and obstacles that we had to overcome in order to be able to execute and deliver on a really meaningful experience for students. For many organizations, they may or may not have been able to participate, but I think in my role in really overseeing our workforce development initiatives and programs, it's really how do we get to yes? And so we have a lot of conversations with DOE, and we have a really great partnership with DOE's Workforce Development Branch with Winnell and Teresa. And very often we get asked the question about high school internships, and we've never done it. And we really focus on our college internship program, but what we're really focused on and why we haven't put all our energy into it yet, right? I don't ever say never, is for the aviation industry in particular, we're looking at a dire shortage of pilots and mechanics, and that is what needs our most immediate attention. Boeing's report recently came out to say that there will be a worldwide shortage of 700,000 pilots in the next 5 years. That has accelerated incredibly over the last 3 years. And so while the industry is very cyclical, that is something that needs very intentional effort. And so you'll see that most airlines have a position like mine that is dedicated to outreach and pipelining and developing pathways to really engage the student early on and get them interested in a career in aviation and to see the diversity of options for them. Same for mechanics. Aviation Technician Education Council, ATEC, has come out to say that in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a shortage just in the United States of 200,000 aircraft maintenance technicians. And so in terms of getting visitors here and being able to sustain the industry, we need to have pilots and mechanics in place to be able to ensure safety of the operation, but ongoing sustainable operations as well. And so some of the programs that we have rolled out just to start is really to get the student that is curious about aviation in the door. So often you see, and I love our pilots, so often you see kids of pilots becoming pilots, right? And it's a very lucrative career. But I would love to see students from lower income communities having those same opportunities. But it takes money and it takes funds to get started. And so as an industry, we feel that we have a responsibility, and Hawaiian Airlines has not been able to do it yet, but I'm excited and hopeful that we will very soon to be able to provide those opportunities and scholarships and funding opportunities. Something else that we've done, we had a lot of incoming requests that come in for career day, right, initiatives. And so often our flight attendants are the first to raise their hand, and I absolutely love our flight attendants, but same goes for students that are always asking me, how do I become a flight attendant? Especially the young girls in the room. And I always challenge them with, why not an engineer? Why not a pilot? Why not an aircraft mechanic? Right? Why do you want to be a flight attendant? And the reason that they share back is, it's just what I know. And so we feel a responsibility to show them the diversity of opportunities that they have and to show them the path and to really have those internships and training to really get them there and give them a great chance of getting through the door and being successful in the role. I think I'll leave that for my opening, and I'll leave the rest for any questions for the following. Thank you.
Thank you. We meet with the Airlines for America group that you saw, Sean Williams, who was on the previous panel, where we have an opportunity to hear from all the airlines. And our discussion with them is that we said we want to get more involved in filling all these job opportunities in the aviation industry. And when I said earlier that tourism provides jobs for people who have a lot of education or very little education, at one of the meetings they said in the airline technician field, where she talked about the choke jobs that are available there. One of the facts that stuck out with me, they said at an entry-level position coming in to say, what do you do for a living? I fix airplanes. That student coming out of high school with a little technical training and the like can make $40 an hour. $40 an hour. Can you imagine that? 18, 19, 20 years old, you're making $40 an hour. So this is where, and also too with an opportunity to grow in that industry. So this is an area that we want to really start to emphasize more, which is why we asked Jolene to be here. I'd like to now turn to our last esteemed speaker. His current title is he's the Complex Director of Human Resources of Marriott International Kyoya Hotels. He comes with 35 years of experience. He is our go-to guy from HLTA when we want to talk about human resource issues. He is our go-to guy when we say, Trevor, can we come up with some ideas so that we can have a mixer, a networking session so that we can collaborate. And he's another rags to riches star, if you will. Started off as a banquet porter and now is recognized as the Dean of the Human Resources Department for many of our hospitality companies. Please give a nice warm welcome, Trevor Bratcher.
Thank you, Mufi. Thank you so much. I can't help but be in a room like this and remember what it was like to set up all of those chairs that you're sitting on. And I would do that at about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I would get through my shift about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd go back to bed, and then I'd get up and go to school. And I was studying law, and suddenly I find myself fascinated with the hospitality industry. Back in the day, they had a lot of people to apply and to work in hotels. It was always kind of considered a part-time gig, though. It was never something that was really advertised as a career opportunity, even in schools. I mean, back then, I think, well, way back then, you know, when they delivered milk to your houses, that they didn't say that hospitality was an opportunity as a career. And I think back to those moments where I just kind of found it myself, when I accidentally walked past a Holiday Inn, and I saw down the hall the big sign, and I said, hey, why don't I try it? I want to just earn a couple of extra bucks. But when I did it, I fell in love with it. And I moved my way through working as a banquet porter to suddenly becoming a in-room dining server. off my way to coffee shop and dining room, making your way through food and beverage into rooms and rooms into finance. And I failed grade 11 math twice, so I don't know how I got into finance. But for some reason, I secretly got into that department for 5 years before I then moved off into payroll, and payroll got me into human resources. Through experiencing all of those great opportunities, I kind of look back and think, why are not more people excited about working in the tourism industry, especially in hotels? You have an opportunity to service all kinds of amazing people who want to be there. People come to your hotels because they've set up for experiences, they've set up for holidays, they've got a birthday celebration or a wedding, and you're there to help make it all happen. Back in the day, posting and praying was our strategy. No longer is posting and praying our strategy. It requires a lot of work together. It requires working with educational institutions, it requires working with government, and it requires working with business. And that trifecta, when it comes together, we can absolutely be successful. We can create those places, those moments where strategy works, where we're constantly evolving through that experience as well. Because we can't stay status quo. We know that in the next 5 to 10 years, hospitality and tourism is going to change exponentially. And as it does, we can't wait for the 5 to 10 years to happen and then look back and go, oh, this is what we should have done. So these moments like this allow us to get together, bridge those gaps, come up with great ideas, and I love coming up with great ideas, and then finding a way to yes. Because it's always so easy to say, you know what, computer says no, we can't do it. Or, legal says no, we want to protect ourselves. So let's find a way to get to yes as we move through the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
You know, Trevor, I never told you this story, but quick sidebar here. I remember now I'm elevating myself from a lot boy to being a tour escort in a contract that the HVCB had hiring college students. So me and my best friend in high school, I said, hey, I got a great job for us. We get to brief tourists, visitors on what their tour is going to be all about and why Hawaii is such a special place. So I'm over there in the lobby, waxing eloquent about the beauty of Hawaii and giving this speech to them. And my friend's across the way with his group, and he says, hey, Porter. I was turning around, yeah, you big fella, come and pick up the bags here. I remember chasing him through the hallway because I was so embarrassed that he would call me a porter. But look, a porter now is the head of the Director of Human Resources there and doing a wonderful job for Kyoya Complex. Let me now go to some specific questions of our group here. So we all know we have to work together. We all know we have to collaborate. But I'd like for you to address how we can bridge the skills gap. What are the most significant skills gaps across the tourism industry right now? And how can government, education institutions, and businesses work together to bridge these gaps effectively? So who wants to take the first crack at that?
I guess I'll go. Something that I mentioned earlier, I think really the community colleges are critical. I would even say adult education programs within the DOE can become critical because learning new skills makes you more marketable, makes you prepared for the next possible position, provides opportunities. And we still yet have to define a program within the community college system specifically for hospitality. And it's not just the jobs at the hotels and the specific attractions, but now with destination management, how can tourism be leveraged in a very positive way so that we create more jobs in specific communities like Wahiawa or Haleiwa, where now you're starting local tours or local festivals or having local galleries, and how does it help ag tourism? You know, we have a lot of these ideas. I just don't think that we've gotten to the point where the strategy is really tight. There seems to be some commitment. I know definitely from the legislature, which is why, working with you, we were able to push through the destination management component, which is now in statute. So that's part of HTA's responsibility now, not just the marketing, but the destination management. So having some agreement from industry, from government, from education of where we begin and work backwards from there. So having the community colleges be the focal point allows us to then pivot and work with DOE and also work with the industry, because that's where they can easily have quite a bit of partnerships, and then work with the TIM school as the next level if they want to continue. But I think that's critical. In addition to all these programs that we started already with Heli Mua and Ho'olina scholarships, I think the next step is really to focus on community colleges.
Senator, could you address the Value-Added Center in Waihawa and that close relationship that you have, speaking with community college, with Leeward Community College?
So if you haven't come to Waihawa, I more than welcome you to come and visit the Leeward Community College Value-Added Product Development Center. It's the largest center of its kind in the country. You know, we went to see all these different centers around in Portland, in Nebraska, in Arkansas. And what the Product Development Center does is it teaches our students, both now high school because it's at the community college level, the public college, community college students, how to take off-grade products or secondary products from the ag community, and I'll just use tomatoes as an example. Not every tomato is sold. Not every tomato is perfect. There's blemishes on it. At the Value Added Center, they teach entrepreneurship and they teach our students product development. So how do you take all of those unused tomatoes and now make it into salsa and have a salsa brand, or ketchup, or hot sauce, or tomato juice? And then we can start to create these sole proprietorships. We can have, and that can be exported. Our students now own these companies. They can either sell to tourists, the local community, or they can start to export, which is really the long-term vision. And so it doesn't matter if it's going to be any of those tomato products. It could end up being cookies, candies, ice creams. I mean, I've even seen bone broth products, vinegar products, all kinds of candy products. And we shouldn't look at it as cannibalizing each other in the sense where multiple students could come up with a candy, because the market is global. And if we can teach our students how to have the entrepreneurship skills, the business skills, the product development skills, and then take it to the next level where they're now marketing in Japan or Taiwan or the East Coast, now they really can have a better future. And I keep telling the students, just think of Big Island candies. Alan Ikawa started off in his garage, and it was a real organic experience. He had to learn everything on his own, all trial and error. Now we're at the point where we have curriculum so that our students don't have to take as long, has wraparound services with mentorship, all the classes they might need, so that they can get up and running a lot faster. And so that's where we are with the Product Development Center. And that's a model working with, I think, DBED that we're going to look at in the future. May it be in fashion, may it be in music. It's these shared facilities that are critical, because most entrepreneurs can't afford to have the equipment. They don't have a warehouse space. We need the shared facilities so that they can grow their business, and then the next step is for the state to actually invest in more warehouse space and shared facilities so that when they graduate, they can continue their business.
So there you have it. You know, whenever you're asked the question, how does agriculture get helped by tourism, or how can tourism help agriculture? It's a question that was posed for me when I went on Spotlight yesterday. This is the latest example you can refer to about this value-added product center there in Waihawa. Tammy, you have anything you want to add to that?
I'm not sure I'm going to address the question, but I have something to add. J. Dean talked about working with the DOE, and I wanted to just look out here. How many of you have currently some kind of partnership with a school or DOE? Okay, not that many. How many people have tried but had a hard time? Okay, so what I do want to share is I encourage you to persist because it's important for our students and for our community. Senator Dela Cruz worked with Superintendent Hayashi a couple years ago and established a new workforce development branch that Jadine mentioned. So we are created, it's essentially the equivalent of like a concierge, for your perspective, like a concierge service, so that you don't have to knock on every door and figure it out. It doesn't make it express, but if we stick together, we can get to yes on this. And so just want to encourage all of you, we'll figure out how to get you my contact information. You can reach out to me, I can connect you, because we're working with minors, and so there are some additional rules and additional steps, but it's really important that we have these partnerships, and we want to, even if you might have gotten a no before, let's figure out how to get to a yes. I'll mention just 2 things that I think are really high impact things you can do immediately that make a difference. One is, it's called a teacher externship. It's like an internship for students, but for teachers. Many teachers are career teachers, that's their workplace. They might not have exposure to your jobs, the kinds of jobs that are available, and so providing exposure for the teachers so that they can see what's happening in your workplace in terms of what kind of skills are required, what kind of teamwork is necessary, what technology is being used, what are the array of jobs, and what are the career ladders look like, are really important for them to experience, because they're influencing not only the curriculum, but they're influencing students every day in the advice that they give about what the options are for students' future. And so Hawaiian Airlines, Outrigger are among the employers who recently have done externships at more than onesie, twosie, like a bigger number, and we can help to facilitate the agreements and then also connect to recruiting the teachers. So that's one. Just want to encourage you. I think that's a high impact way to do something immediately. And then another one is that we are now working with the American Job Centers in each of the counties to do a career fair, job fair, in the spring for graduating seniors who are seeking a job. So that's just an immediate thing that you can participate in terms of connecting with students around who are seeking employment in the near term. We really need to start earlier and getting young people interested to know what the jobs are available and and committing themselves and connecting to the work earlier. And internships and such are part of that, and being on advisory committees, so you're working with schools are part of that too. So yes to all of that, but I think the other 2 are just high immediate things that you can do that might be, quick return on investment. I don't know, Jadine, if you wanted to just speak to your experience about the externships.
Yeah, hang on.
Since that was
So
pretty
for
simple.
Jadine and Trevor, in addition to that question, if you'd like to opine on it, I also want you to give us your thoughts on, it's one thing to recruit, but what are you doing to retain? What kind of incentives that you have to put on the table to ensure that a good employee doesn't leave you so quickly for someplace else or another profession? So first Jadine and then Trevor.
I think I'll start with the explanation of the externship. So we often get questions from educators, and sometimes the inquiries will come inbound via email, and they weren't really sure where to send the email. Sometimes it would come through to our marketing department. Sometimes it would go through community relations. Sometimes it would go through consumer affairs, right? They'd call the customer service line, and it'd be inquiries for support with classroom presentations, job fairs, curriculum, just skills development. What types of skills should I be teaching my students so that they could one day be prepared for a job with Hawaiian Airlines? They say that they want to get there, but how do I help them get there? And so we took a step back and we realized that when it comes to pipelining, there's really 3 key pillars that that ties into this. And so number 1 being interest. Getting them the exposure and awareness of what types of job opportunities are out there. Number 2, training. How do you get them trained? How do you have that, kind of mind-muscle connection, skill-mind connection, right? How do you get them to understand what skills they're learning currently and how they'll apply that one day? And the third piece is funding. How do you put funding supports in place so that they can ultimately achieve their dreams? And so we have developed quite a few programs, number one being our Career Ambassadors program, which has 150 employee volunteers who love to do this in their own time. They are trained to go into classrooms and connect with students, what to say, what not to say, to facilitate career fairs, mock interviews, etc. And that has helped our talent acquisition team to really spread our wings, and our recruiters can focus on recruiting, and our employee volunteers, who we call ambassadors, can do what they love in the community and talk about how much they love their jobs and how they themselves got there. And so that's the exposure piece. The second part of exposure is we have our Aviation Ike and Aviation A'o programs. And so those are more kind of getting you into what skills you need to have, or what skills you might already embody, and which roles might be the right fit for you. And so our Ike is a one-day experience, and we have students that are selected by DOE to spend a day with us, and we show them the really big rocks in our organization. So they see our operations control center, they see the maintenance hangar, they get to fly in the flight sim, and the same thing goes for other areas of the visitor industry, right? You know what your big rocks are. Getting them interested, and your ideal audience for that is a student that is interested, but they don't really know what to do with that interest, and they haven't had anyone to really talk to about that. The 1 week immersion is an expansion of that. That is for the student who is already really invested and very curious, but again, doesn't really know where to put that energy, and the teacher might not know where to guide them to. And so that is a 1 week immersion where they spend 25 hours with us Monday through Friday for one entire week, with teachers included, and the teachers actually ask the best questions. In order to be a pilot, what skills or what types of lessons should my student be really focused on? In order to be in the operations control center, what types of skills are important, right? Ability to multitask, ability to stay cool under pressure, et cetera. And so being able to relay that really helps to bring, I think, the concepts home. For us on the retention side, I think in the visitor industry, especially for hotels and airlines, the benefits really speak for themselves, right? Being able to offer benefits where you are awarded or rewarded the longer you're with a company. Seniority at an airline is everything. Being able to ensure that you'll get on your standby flight, be able to get access to discounts as needed, and being able to ensure that your management team embodies your company culture. I think positive culture is the biggest component when it comes to retention. When I speak to students, the number one thing that I leave them with at the end of the week is I ask them, what did you think of the Hawaiian Airlines culture? How did you feel with every facilitator, every speaker that you've met this week? And they all say that they felt so great and welcome, and they really see why we refer to each other as an ohana. And I leave them with the fact that be really careful about the organization that you commit yourself to, because culture is everything, and that is really going to make or break whether you're able to stay at that organization. And so what I think I'd leave you with is just making sure that you're able to embody your culture in a positive way, because that is what really will keep your future employees with you. Thank you.
Have you heard of the saying, fake it till you make it? Right, some of us may be in this room faking it right now until we make it, and that's okay. But you still need to have some type of skill set to be that person who gets noticed and gets that opportunity to start faking it till you make it. And we also say that we will train the skills, but we will hire those positive attitudes, right, that are coming into our industry. It's getting tougher and tougher, I have to say, that when we are out there and we are doing the recruiting, that even some of those basic skills are not there when you are having the introductory moment, right? So back in the day, we would just focus on colleges. Colleges were the place where we would start to interact. We would connect with amazing people, and they, of course, got to a level where they are now, and they're celebrating their successes with us, and we're trying to, of course, poach, steal, kidnap, I don't know what you call it, but the best candidates out of those classes. And then, of course, we start seeing it's harder and harder because industries, businesses are all competing for that same small pocket of people. And so we need to recognize that we have to expand that skill. So more people need to have those basic skills to be able to come into the workforce, the ones that have, the flag that says, hire me because I am exactly what you want. So now we start looking broader, right? So we now started as a corporation, as entities, we would go into the high schools. And now we're sitting down at the high schools and we're working with, an example is like Farrington, and we're doing direct placement programs with them. Some of the students may not want to go to post-secondary education, so we are tapping into that group that really want to get out, they want to get involved, they want to come and start their careers early. Maybe school wasn't the right necessary fit for that particular group, so we are now garnering relationships with different high schools in the area. In fact, when I sit down and I go through Read Across America, I'm at Jefferson Public School. I'm now telling the 2 and 3 graders, you got to really consider a career in hospitality. So I don't know, aside from maybe putting some kind of a speaker up to the babies that are still in the mother's wombs, how early I can get that infectious concept of join tourism, join hospitality. When they get to us, of course, you don't want them to leave. Retention is such a key, important piece of what we do. We train a lot. And we are very lucky with Marriott International and Kyoyo Hotels and Resorts because we have the resources to be able to do that. We have the ability to create programs. We have the ability to grow internally and promote from within. And frankly, if you take a look at what a hotel encompasses, you can be a pastry chef, and then with training, you can suddenly become a plumber or an electrician. Or maybe you want to move into finance, or you want to go into human resources and be my next director of recruitment and development. Or, see, I'm poaching wherever I can. Because that's really what it's all about, is to keep those great people that you have in your house and celebrate them by constantly enhancing their own skill set and helping them reach their full potential. It's one of the basic human truths. We all want to reach our full potential, and we want to feel good about the work that we do. So how do you do that as an industry, as a company? How do you make them feel that way, right? They need to understand that you believe in something. So when you go and focus on your core values and you focus on your culture within your company, then you need to make sure that you are addressing that with your teams. You want them to come along this journey with you. The worst thing that I always hear or I feel is when I see that email where somebody says, thank you so much. I have decided to leave and pursue other opportunity. And I look at that and go, ugh, where did I fail? What happened? Why did I do this? Why are you leaving? And of course, then I have to get the key out and unleash them from their desk and their shackles. But it's such a load that you kind of take it on personally as you're leaving me, you're leaving our Ohana, you're leaving our company. So we do whatever we can to try to motivate and keep them within. Yes, we have the reward and recognition programs, but we don't carry one program that just says, here, it's a one-stop shop. You have to identify what each individual wants. You have to create programs that define them individually, personally, connect with them. You have to create mentorship programs, which is what we do internally. Align them with senior leaders so that they get the information and the guidance from people who have been there. They say, it's okay to fail. I have gone through this. We take our senior leaders and we call them teachable points of view, where I have senior leaders come in and speak to our junior managers and say, here, let me tell you a story of what I went through, so that it creates a safe space that people understand it's okay to make the mistake. Of course, you make the mistake over and over and over again. It's a different conversation. But that gives you the opportunity to learn from those people. And by creating those relationships, by strengthening that bond, that glue that's within your company, then that's what keeps it successful. Not only are they winning for themselves, but they're also winning for the business. And you're also going to see more people knocking on your door. And you too will become more successful. Everybody wants to play on the winning team. And that's what we try to create internally.
So we have time for one more question. Got about 10 minutes left here. But and I want you to address this. We're facing some uncertain economic situations, or the fact that there's still some things, as the governor talked about, that the state is obligated to do with the Maui wildfires. And anytime that you have sort of some fiscal crisis happening, there's always looking to cuts to be made. I know in the private sector, oftentimes you look at your advertising budget and you cut, or your marketing budget that you cut, or your travel budget. So how can we ensure that as some companies or the government may be facing some tough economic times, that workforce development will continue to be a priority from a budgeting standpoint and also from a priority? So take about a minute to answer that, and then take another 30 seconds to give your closing remarks. Go from right to left. Go ahead, Tammy. You go first.
Well, I think in terms of as we look ahead, and there's lots of potential fiscal challenges, like at least for the Department of Education, workforce development is a priority. It's the future for our young people, and making sure that the learning is relevant. That's a really important part about why the employer partnerships and the internships and the teachers' exposure to your workplaces are really important, because that's what makes learning relevant. And so we are re-looking and reprioritizing what we're doing to make sure that those things can continue. We want to make it as easy as possible to work with us so that more students can have more opportunities. And we're everywhere, in every part of the state. And so wherever you are, we want to partner with you. So I'll just start there. And it's just really imperative. I think the one other thing I wanted to say about in response to what Trevor said, students these days are not the same. First of all, just in terms of the demographics coming forward for you to know, is there's less births, which means there's less students. So if we look compared to this last year's births compared to 10 years ago, it's down from 18,000 to like 15,000 a year in the state. So there's less young children, meaning less students in the school, meaning less graduates down the pipeline. So that's something in addition to all the realities to work on. There's just less people on the horizon. So working hard to make sure more students graduate, and that they want to and are ready to stay in Hawaii. So I'm not sure that's exactly what Mufi wanted me to say, but I do. One other thing I want to say that's something that we can all do is really encourage you to get the message out to your employees and all your networks for your young people that attendance is important. Showing up every day, all day for school really matters. Pandemic has really impacted your business, it impacted schools. In addition to all the other impacts, we see that less students are coming to school regularly, and that is not just a DOE issue and an academic issue, it's also preparing the workforce for their readiness to show up later on. So whatever you can do to partner with us to get the word out will have returns for all of us. So thank you.
I'll add on to that briefly. I think it's important for students to hear from professionals on why it's important to be on time, to have a clean record, to be able to pass a background check and a drug test, right? Because they hear it from their teachers, but it hits home when they hear it from you. I think to answer Mufi's question about why workforce development should continue to be important, whether it's a bear market, bullish market, whatever it may be, because again, like anything else, the industry is very cyclical. Coming out of the pandemic, that is what threw us into this shortage of pilots and mechanics, increased retirements, just people changing careers, and there was a lack of attention on workforce development. And so as an industry, particularly aviation, it feels that we have a very strong commitment to, despite what's going on in the industry, and despite what's going on within the singular airline, we're not taking our eyes off of workforce development ever again, because it's an investment. Just the programs that I've mentioned to you now, the collaboration that was required to stand those programs up took 1.5 years. stand up, right? And so if you start now, right, you could work very quickly and have something, especially if you have great partners, right, and you're a great networker, and with the support of both private, public sector, and government, being able to think of creative ways out of the box. We didn't require a lot of financial investment for our programs, if I'm being honest. Like I said, we'd like to get there, but we thought of what are very low-cost, efficient ways where, despite where the company might have been financially at that moment, we're still able to provide these exposureship opportunities for students so that we continue having a pipeline of interested individuals that want to pursue careers and the right people to guide them along the way. So I think what I'll leave you with is just continue to invest in your people, leave room for someone on your team, or create a role for someone on your team to be able to invest their creative thinking into some of these projects, because they will pay off in the long run. The ROI is there. Starting as early as elementary school is where we need to be. So thank you.
Well, you have a big advocate in workforce development with Rep. Garrett here. And he's, on the House side, I think, very dedicated. Yeah, I know he's on the Workforce Development Council with me. But if workforce development is going to be a priority at the legislature, that's just not enough. You need to have a plan. You need to show that you have accountable results so that we can fund it. Everyone can say it's a priority, but that just maybe gets you at the door. You have to actually put money, some money behind it from the industry and a commitment behind it. Things that the industry, I think, could do is work a lot closer with DOE and co-teaching. I know that was something that we talked about, where some of your executives would actually go to the schools and co-teach with the teacher, one class. Then that already brings education and industry a lot closer. I also think that despite the shrinking birth rate, that's to some extent irrelevant because we still have so many people leaving Hawaii. And so what the industry also has to do is get involved in housing issues. If you can't have an employee if they can't buy a house or live in Hawaii. And so the industry has to think even that much broader outside of the box to make sure that your employees can afford to live in Hawaii. So I think you need to be a lot more active in that. And like I mentioned earlier, for tourism, they have to show that they're the big dog and that they're gonna help the other industries grow. And I was really glad to see that I got a locally grown lei today, because that's kind of my pet peeve. Every time I see an imported lei, either from a state department or from the tourism industry, I think, you're not doing enough. These little things do matter. And you can have all these conversations, we can say that they're priorities, but your actions speak louder than words. And your actions are going to tell us where the investment really should go. And the last thing I want to say, talking about actions, is for our students, they have to see that they can become the general manager of a hotel. They have to see local people in those management positions. That is extremely motivating. And so we can have a lot of other lower-level managers and expect our kids to think that that's enough, but that's not. And not with the amount of money that the state's putting in. That has to be a commitment from the hotels, and that's something that, I've had conversations with the DBID director, with Mufi, which is why we have Ho'olina, but that has to be a commitment. I'm not sure if some of that decision is above your pay grade, but let it be known to those above that Hawaii, the legislature, is not going to invest in tourism if that is not taken seriously. So thank you.
Now I'm going to ask you, what kind of ketchup do you buy? You're all confused. That's okay, but you're probably all thinking, oh, Heinz, I buy Heinz, right? That's the one you always buy. When you're thinking about something and you're thinking about branding, branding is really what it's all about. When you're talking about tourism and hospitality, I want to be the Heinz of the ketchup products out there. I want to be the French's of all the mustards. I want to be the king of condiments. I just want to have an opportunity where we can bring all of our people together, right? Like I said about the trifecta, I think that we should take education and government and the business, and we create maybe our own campaign. Maybe it has to be much more involved where it's in front of everybody, where people think, hey, you know, hospitality is an amazing opportunity to get involved in. I mean, otherwise, we were talking about the decreasing population, we can't force people to have babies, and you can't shut down the planes and keep everyone on the island. You've got to make them want to be a part of something. And if they want to be a part of something, they're investing their own time more personally and committing 100% of it. And maybe sometimes all it takes is, you know, that advertising campaign that's out there that says, hey, I never thought about that. Maybe that's something that I should do. Once we get them connected or excited about something, then it's up to the rest of us to keep it all going, right? For us to be great leaders out there, great partners, great business advocates, and we incorporate things like Hawaiian culture into everything that we do. We maybe provide mandated requirements. Maybe there are tax benefits to employers that require certain components. Maybe there is we focus on diversity and bringing in more diverse workers into the workspace, but we look at the local community and say, how can we increase that number of people who are gaining those positions, and not just the entry-level positions, but creating those opportunities to grow within the industry and have them come up to your point where we are now seeing our own internal leaders here. I think that there's a lot of opportunity we can do to incite people to come, and then there's a lot of work for us to do to keep people doing what we need them to do. And frankly, it is an amazing industry to be a part of. You know, there's a lot of businesses out there. And when I sit down in our cafeterias at the hotel and I look at all of our employees, and they're all sitting down and they're having great stories, and then they go home on the weekends, and people always ask them, what was it like in the hotel today? That's a great story to share. Or what was it like when you flew to, you know, Bora Bora? What was that like? People love to hear the stories of service. You know, I'm sorry about the finance people out there because, you know, usually you don't say, how was that spreadsheet? Yeah, that was a great one. But when we talk about people, and as people gather and they come together, they celebrate, they're excited, they cry, they laugh, and those are great stories to share. What better way to do it than in hospitality and tourism? Join us, Marriott.com.
Always promoting. Okay. I hope you have been edified by what you heard today. I hope you have been motivated. And one of the takeaways is this. It's not too early to start talking about jobs in the #1 industry in the state. You heard them all say that. I went to Fern School, and a couple weeks ago we were there giving them school supplies as a project of HLTA. I used that opportunity to tell my elementary school that this is a great industry. Start thinking about it. So with that being said, I want to do one more action-oriented call for all of you to think about. The CIP, CIA program that I talked to you about, the next cohort application is due on October 11th. Keep in mind, those rising chefs have to have at least 3 years of experience, and then they'll be able to have an opportunity in late October and early November to just take 5 days of their time to get that CIA certification right here at CIP. Need to thank Denise and Roy Yamaguchi for their leadership in that regard, and HTA is very happy to be a part of it. That being said, thank you again, all of you, for being here. Sorry we didn't have time for your questions, but as you can see, it can go on and on and on because they have so much to share with you, and they're passionate about it, which is what I like. Mahalo. Thank you. Aloha.